Okay, let me start with my introduction. My name is Jeevita Venugopal, Compensation Market Intelligence Manager at Comscope. I am your moderator for today for this interesting discussion on 2022 variable pay plan. As soon as you board the plane, as you can usually get the rules and regulations, now we have the housekeeping for this virtual session. Today's session is being recorded. You already saw that it's been recorded. You have joined in listen-in mode only, but I would like it to be more interactive, so you can use your chat window for discussions or putting in your comments. If you agree with the panel statements, then give a thumbs up or a high five or a applause. Please do use these reactions so that it helps us to understand the mood of the event. Please feel free to ask questions also using the chat window. And if there's time left, we will of course endeavor to answer all your Q&As. So thanking the opportunity what Ledex has given for the new participants who are not aware of Ledex, here's a brief introduction about Ledex. Ledex is the community of HR Total Rewards professionals. We started our journey in 2019 from a single WhatsApp group, and now we have grown up to more than 1,700 group members from across 700 different organizations spread over 10 different WhatsApp groups. The idea of forming the Ledex platform is to bring in all the Total Rewards professionals over a single platform and create a marketplace for the HR community, and we have succeeded in making one. It's a unique platform in the whole world where the HR community can interact with each other, can make informed decisions, and share feedback about service providers. So that's more about Ledex. And then I'm overjoyed and excited to introduce the panel members whom we have today. So if the panel members are logged in, then I would, as soon as I call out your name, if you could just wave so that the participants know whom I'm talking about, it will be really helpful. We have Neha Sethi, who's the HR head, Pearl Academy. She's a PGDM HR from All India Management Association, Delhi, with overall experience of 13 years plus in HR. Warm welcome to you, Neha.
क्या करना है?
I would request all the participants to go on mute, please. Thank you.
Jeevita, you would like to go on a presentation mode for the presentation, please?
Sure. Is it visible now, Rishabh?
Jeevita, it is not. It is still in slide number 1. I think you are explaining slide number 3. Am I right?
Yes, I have moved to slide 3. Okay,
but
maybe.
Still it is showing slide number 1.
Yeah, same here also.
Yeah, for everybody, I guess.
Yeah. You maybe share and unshare and share again. And,
okay, I'll do that. Thanks, guys, for letting me know.
The entire screen.
Yeah, now we can see the slide number 3.
Okay. How is it now?
It's fine now, Jeevita, we can see her.
Okay, thank you. So was Neha able to wave so that everybody could see who Neha is? Okay, great.
Thank you, Jeevita.
Okay, next we have Talat.
Hi.
Hi, everyone.
Talat Yasmin, who's the head of rewards operations with JLL. She has completed her MBA in HR and is a certified rewards professional from Aon. She has more than 15 plus years of experience in HR. Welcome, Talat.
Thank you, Shivita.
And then we have Sneha Bajpai, who's the Associate Director, Total Rewards South Asia, Linde. She has done her BA Psychology, PG CHRM from XLRI with total experience of more than 15 years within CNB. A warm welcome to you, Sneha.
Hi, everyone.
And then we have Arthi Padma Devanathan, who's the Global Lead, Career and Performance, HCL Technologies. She has completed her Master's in HR from Madras University and has been with HCL for more than 16 years now with varied experiences within HR. Welcome to you, Arthi.
Sorry, I was on mute. Hi, everyone. Happy New Year to all of you.
Thank you. Okay, before we get started, I just want to know from the audience. So how many of you are prepared for the variable payout, which you will be receiving in the month of March or April? I don't know. So if you're all ready for it, then raise your hands. Otherwise, you can just say, I am not expecting much. The company's performance is dependent on that. So I don't think after taxation, I'll get any money. So any reactions will help. You can put a sad smiley or a happy smiley. So many of them. So Rishabh, can you just look at the chat window and let me know? What is the reactions overall? Are they expecting or they are quite sad?
They seems to be happy.
Great. So, but organizations in this year, 2022, is somewhat in a complex mode but having many challenges. Though they have a lot of challenges, they have good benefits as well, like lower or zero cost of office space, increased productivity, and lower overhead costs as well, which are bigger advantages for them. However, issues dealing with labor shortages continue to be a major problem within the organizations. We all know about the Great Resignation, right? That is the word within the HR community which is running around. So talent retention has been the #1 issue for most major corporations. Holding on to employees is harder than ever, with so much of competition across all industries. Due to this, there has been an increase in variable compensation strategies across organization. So as Ledex, we thought that this is the right forum and then an event to be conducted to discuss the challenges what we have and how we should be designing or planning the variable pay in this current situation. So with the great panels and then with me, let's try to see how better we can make our variable pay strategy. Over to the panel now. So the way it will work is I'll pose a question to one of the panelists and they will answer it. And then if there's any opinions and thoughts, the panel members will also add on to it. So as audiences, if you would like to also add some inputs, so please use the chat window and share your comments. You're more than welcome to do that. Let's start off with the first question to Neha. So Neha, according to you, what is variable pay? Let's start with the basics. What is variable pay and why do employers offer it to candidates in the first place? Because for me, if you see, when I started off my career, base pay was the only thing I used to look at. Variable pay, I never knew till I think 5 years to 10 years back. So what is, according to you, is variable pay and why should we offer it to employers?
First of all, good evening, everyone. And thank you, Ledex, for this wonderful opportunity. And hello to all my fellow panelists. I mean, it's such an amazing opportunity to be here today and talking about an important topic, especially for the compensation and benefits community. I would say variable pay is closest to our heart. So yes, I think it would be, I'm sorry, I've got a bad throat. So it would be best that, you know, we start with the basic question of what is a variable pay, basically. So generally what happens, and I used to be like that when I was not part of the HR team or, you know, in particularly compensation and benefits, I used to look at the salary which I'm going to get every month in my bank account. And for me, that was my fixed pay. But when you talk about total compensation, it has different elements to it. Generally, I would call 5 elements are, constituting total compensation for an employee. The first one would be of course, the major one, which is the fixed pay. Then would be your retirals, your statutory benefits like PF, gratuity, all that. Then your benefits and purposes like leaves, your medical, your insurance, all that cost which the organization puts in to really ensure that you have those benefits in place. And then some of the organizations, they have the stock options plan. If they have an IPO, and maybe they can go for restricted stock units as well. But this is not applicable to all. So I would say this fourth sometimes becomes the variable pay for organizations. Otherwise, it's the fifth element or the fifth component which forms the total compensation, and it's called the variable pay. Variable pay, I would say, is, by the name itself, it's something which is not fixed and it varies. And majorly, it is driven through your performance. So when I say performance, depending on different roles, it could be a performance bonus. For a sales role, it could be an incentive or a commission structure. Sometimes variable pay also constitutes a joining bonus or a one-time retention bonus, or let's say a long-term recurring, retention bonus, a referral bonus, and other forms of bonuses or payouts, which are either one-time or recurring in nature, but they are not fixed. So hence they become part of the variable pay. So I will say this is what is variable pay. Now the next question, the second half of your question, that why do employers, they offer variable pay to an employee? I think the two major areas or reasons for employers to offer variable pay is, first of all, talent attraction. And when I say talent attraction, obviously everybody has to really look at the cost part of it. And this variable pay really gives a room to play, for the organization in terms of really what they want to offer to a candidate and attract them. You cannot always be really increasing your cost and just getting the person on a higher cost, but you have to really look at ways wherein you would be able to really project. And I'm saying that, it's really not a projection per se, but it could be a reality as well. So, like I said, variable pay generally is driven through the performance. So you have your performance matrices in place for the organization, and you try to attract talent by showcasing that, how much potential, we are offering to our candidates, if they perform really, exceedingly well, and accordingly gives that room to really negotiate and attract and, get talent onboarded without actually incurring a very high cost, right? So of course, that is the first, part, which is very, very important for an employer. The second part is the talent retention, which you were just talking about, the great resignation, that it's the word which is, floating in the market right now. So this plays a very important role in that, generally, all of us, we understand that, there are many factors which play in, an important role wherein the employee wants to continue with the organization. But of course, everybody, primarily, I would say, would look at how much am I earning, when I'm working here, and after putting in all that effort. So you try to really look at, and like I said, that compensation is just not your fixed salary, but you try to really look at those ways which will increase it. And it's not a plain simple that, every year through the merit increase, you would be able to get that rise, but you have to really look at those ways which will help you get to the maximum potential. And remember that potential which I was talking about, which was presented to the employee at the time of hiring, at the time of talent attraction. So, and for employers, it works, it's basically a win-win situation. If the employee is really striving to achieve, maximum performance, so that the person can really get that highest, rating in terms of getting the high variable pay. At the same time, for the organization also, it becomes favoring, because you would be able to get a differentiated performance out of the employee. So I would say, yeah, these are the two main factors which basically helps employers, use variable pay to their benefit, and this is how it helps them.
So yes, so you're saying that organizations have to use variable pay effectively, thinking the cost as well as more of an attraction and retention kind of a strategy to build the variable pay. Yes, I think that's a great point, Neha. So any other panelists would like to add something to what Neha said?
I think that was very well captured, Chivita, with respect to the talent attraction and the talent retention points. The two most important factors why variable pay is used. Just one quick addition to that would be, that variable pay is also a great means of compensating your employees without increasing the total fixed cost of the organization. So that's where you can leverage variable pay to get talent at really attractive prices while keeping the costs of the firm low, because you know that if the productivity goes high, the revenues multiply, and therefore you'll be able to hire a lot more attractive compensation to the employees than you would have otherwise committed to yourself with a fixed salary.
Great.
So I just would like to add a slightly different perspective, right, which is not so CNB oriented. So I don't come from a hardcore CNB background, right? So I manage performance. So if you look at it from that perspective, when you offer a candidate, right, you show him a certain salary structure, he or she looks at it, and more often than not, nobody asks you, how do I make my salary? How do I get my next compensation revision? What should I do to move to the next level? Those are questions typically candidates don't ask. What they do ask is, how do I make my variable pay? What are the things I should do to make my variable pay? Right? If you answer that question well, with significant amount of clarity, and if you are able to establish that linkage between performance and earning potential there, half your battle is won. Right?
Yeah.
What you have ended up doing is you have ended up communicating in clear terms to the employee as to what your performance expectations are, and you've also told the employee, good, I mean, this is the performance expectation. If you do that, this is your earning potential. I mean, variable pay, I believe the variable pay component and the pay design sets you up for this conversation at very early stages, even before the employee joins you, point number one. Or point number two is, at the time you're doing a new joiner orientation, right? These are things they ask you. Typically, you don't look at new employees asking you, what are the 10 things I do to progress, 10 things I do to get my comp increase. Those are questions that don't come when they join you, but they certainly talk about the variable pay, right? So that's a very good platform to communicate your performance expectations from the employee, and also show them a line of sight as to what their potential earning can be, right? For which obviously the prerequisite is you should have a good variable pay design, which is simple, clear, and easy to understand and not ambiguous. So that's my 2 cents on this topic. As we go along, we can chat a bit more.
I think you beautifully summarized the entire conversation, what we had. Make it simple, easy to understand for them, make variable pay a motivator for employees to earn better. Yeah. So next, Arthi, I have a nice question for you. Then what in that case should be the objectives of an organization should look at for achieving through variable pay?
So for obvious reasons, right, variable pay is one is, I'm really not talking about the cost aspect, right? Because That's not an orientation I really come from. But for obvious reason, variable pay is used to drive high performance, right?
Yeah.
So you certainly want to have high performing individuals. Therefore, you kind of find ways and means to encourage that high performance. But to me, there are several other objectives an organization can drive through a good variable pay design. What are those? If you look at it, right, I can bring a great deal of objectivity in my performance management process through my variable pay design, right? What I mean is, when I kind of attach a variable pay to a certain performance outcome, uh, I then have it. I've taken it upon me to make the goal objective, to make the measurement objective, and to communicate it transparently, because it's linked to a certain variable payout, right? I'm also opening the forum for conversation, right? In the sense that let's sit across the table, agree on objectives, agree on how you will get paid, and discuss and close the variable pay plan. So that way, what I'm really doing is bringing a great deal of objectivity into my performance management process. What I'm doing is I'm also increasing the transparency in my performance evaluation approach, right? So I'm going to tell you clearly, this is your goal, this is how objective it will be, this is how I will measure and report it, and this is what you will make if you achieve it. That entire link is being transparently communicated, right? So to me, these should be objectives while an organization is designing a variable pay plan, to make it as objective as possible, as transparent as possible. And the benefits are many, right? It even has a benefit on employee engagement, if you ask me, because the employee is clearly saying these business outcomes will increase my potential earning. Therefore, I want to be more involved in them.
Exactly.
Right? So it's going to increase the level of engagement that the employee has in the organization itself, and it brings good governance also, right? So because of a linkage that you have with a certain dollar value, however big or small it is, you want to kind of have auditable processes, you want to have transparent mechanisms, you want to automate these things, you want to communicate openly, you want to be fair and just, right? And you want to establish an equitable distribution. Because you want to do all this, you've brought in a lot of objectivity into the performance management process. So two objectives in my mind: one is to drive a high performance organization, and the other is to bring a great deal of transparency, objectivity, and fairness in the performance management processes in the organization. A good variable pay design is required.
I completely agree with you, Arthi. I just had a thought when you said transparency in building these objectives. So do you think that the employees do understand the importance of setting these objectives and how their variable pay will help them? So though there is a lot of communications which happens, setting up the goals and everything, it is communicated to the employees, but do they know the impact of what they are doing? Do you think that they have that understanding?
It depends on how good your design is, right? You will need to segment the population, right? You will need to create designs which are customized, which are largely horses for courses. It cannot be one size fit all.
Correct.
Right? If you do that, then certainly you can't expect the employee to understand. Right? So if a plan design is simple, if it is realistic, and if it gives if it addresses the area which the employee can influence on his own, right? uh, then then I think communication becomes easier, transparency becomes easier. So that is what people like us are for, right? I mean,
Exactly.
essentially we are sort of getting ourselves to become experts in this field, so that we can help organizations really make those designs which are simplistic, which can be explained well, which can be transparently communicated, and and the desired outcomes can be derived. But in my mind, automation plays a big part in transparency.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so if you are able to automate, if you are able to leverage the power of technology in communication, then certainly yes. I mean, it is very doable. I mean, helping employees understand the how their variable pay is calculated, what are their goals, what are the payout metrics. It is definitely doable.
Yeah. Thanks, Arthi, for the detailed explanation. I think it gives us more clarity on how we should be looking at the variable pay. Thank you so much.
To add to that point, I
Yeah.
mean, I completely agree with Arthi. However, personally, I've experienced it myself that a lot of organizations are not very transparent. And that could be for various reasons. One, that, like she was saying, that, design itself is so complex that even if you want to really go out and inform and make it very, very, available for everybody to understand, it's just almost impossible to really share the entire semantics of it. Second is that the organization does not have that kind of a culture wherein they want it to be, something which is that clear and, objective in nature, that the employees would be able to just calculate it themselves and probably would have their own ways of ensuring that, they are earning the variable pay really, really high. And they want to keep that entire control under them. So they would have that kind of a policy, which would say that, yes, we have a variable bonus policy, annual performance bonus policy, which is linked to your performance. And sometimes is a combination of just not individual's performance, but team or company performance as well. And, accordingly, it would depend how we perform. And you would have broadly, this range from a 15 to 20%, and you would get something basis the calculation accordingly. So this is something which I'm sharing from my experience, that, this is also a situation or a scenario wherein a lot of, organizations, they operate in, and
Exactly.
a lot of employees, they do not have that kind of a transparency or objectivity around the annual performance bonus being shared with them.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing your perspective, Neha. I think that helps. Okay, with the interest of time, we have a lot more questions to cover. So Sneha, this is for you. How does variable plans help organization to drive performance? I think more or less Arthi also has covered it, but yeah, I think you can give your own point of view on that.
Sure, and that's the point. Like Arthi really nailed the entire bit of designing, and which is so important for an organization. So if variable performance cannot be delinked from an entire performance management system. If you see, unless your performance management is robust, unless you are linking it with the overall organizational objectives, what is it that the organization want to drive through variable? It's a beautiful tool available to us, which really which we can design to ensure that the desired outcome is generated, right? So the performance primarily would be driven only when the organization says that, hey, this is what we call successful performance, and this is what we call a mediocre performance, and this is what we call below par. So primarily, it all boils down to how your performance management is designed, and thereby linking it to variable component. So unless we look at it holistically, it wouldn't drive performance. Unless your performance management program is designed linking to variable pay, you wouldn't be able to differentiate. So does a variable pay drive performance culture? No. The entire performance management kind of drives performance culture. And if you are able to differentiate that by using variable compensation, is what will then further drive performance. You need to ensure that the employee doesn't feel entire organization, right? If you do not bring in components like the organizational performance, the unit performance, or the individual performance, the employee wouldn't be part of the whole, would be just a cog sitting there of the entire within the entire organization, and wouldn't relate to the organizational performance. So it is as important from the design element that we keep that focus in mind, that how and why are we ensuring that the organizational performance is met only then the variable compensation will be given. What is the threshold that we are deciding for it? What is the max that we are deciding for it? So these all components are so important when we are designing the variable compensation. We need to ensure, as I said, differentiation. What is it at target? What is it at stretch that the employee would get? How would you differentiate the variable pay compensation for your sales versus your non-sales versus your operations? All these are so many important elements that will help design that. What is it? What kind of behavior is it that you? I mean, from psychological perspective, what is the carrot and the stick that variable compensation is driving? Yeah, are you able to say that in operations, if you have productivity, you would have better pay? If you are below, if you're not able to meet the productivity, if your productivity is below what was expected, then you wouldn't get. So these are the elements which will decide primarily that how the performance is driven. So I think those are some of the important elements what I would like to really emphasize, besides what Arthi and Neha have shared.
Yeah.
Of course, communication of variable compensation remains the key element. You need to have robust communication. I mean, I have been in organizations where there have been no variable compensation, to have been in organizations where employees are very keen to understand their variable compensation. They come and ask us that, what has been the financial performance of the organization this year, so that they can calculate, which simply means that they are able to simply calculate the entire variable compensation on their own, because they can gauge that where they stand and where the organization stands, and thereby what is their earning potential. So if these elements are kept in mind, I think, yes, a successful variable compensation can drive performance.
Exactly. I like the way you put that question as to how and why organization performance needs to be met. I think that's how it boils down to the employee level as well. Well said, Sneha. Thank you so much for that. So next question is for Talat. Talat, the question to you is, do organizations still follow benchmarking exercise to derive their variable pay targets? Do you think still it is there in practice, or what are the methodologies people are using to come up with their own variable pay targets?
Very interesting question, Javita. I would love to say that, yes, organizations are benchmarking, but I'm not sure how many organizations in the market are still benchmarking. But that's the reason that we've got organizations like Aon or Mercer or Conferry out there who are doing this on behalf of other organizations. And not at the cost of sounding, like advocating for any of the survey houses out here. But I do think that participating in a benchmarking exercise is a very, very fruitful and a very effective exercise. You can share your data, as well as you can be rest assured that the market data that you are getting from these organizations is properly vetted, identified. There is nothing that gets leaked out from these organizations to say that one particular organization, JLL or HCL or Linde is paying so-and-so to their respective employees. The market data that goes out is with respect to some suppression rules that we have in place, or, that just completely masks the identity of the organizations, in short, but does give a good idea with respect to the overall compensation and variable pay in particular, to say that this is what the market is paying for that particular role that you're looking to attract or you're looking to retain in your organization. So that's, I think that was your question, to say that if the organizations are benchmarking or if they should be benchmarking. That's right?
Yes, exactly. So yes, I agree with you. I mean, without benchmarking, you won't get a standard way of defining your own variable pay design, whether it is simple or easier. I think the good reference with the market.
It will be like shooting in the dark, because you will just completely be out there, lost to say what should be my fixed cost to my variable cost pay ratio, what should be my payouts, how much payout should I be doing at what level of employees in terms of setting up target. And just to give a small example to say what kind of target bonus percentages should be set up at what level. Because if you are not market competitive, your whole objective of putting a variable pay plan in place, would be good for nothing. So that is definitely a very good, strategy to have a benchmarking exercise done in place to gauge the pay design elements. How are the various other competitors in the market that you're competing against, which could be your target set of companies, that could be your direct competitors or your aspirational companies, where you wish to hire from. Benchmark against them, against your salaries, without having your data get out in the open by masking your data and getting their data in return, and then arrive at a competitive, variable pay plan.
Great point, Talat. Absolutely, I agree with you. Any other panelists would like to add to Talat?
Absolutely agree with Talat, Jivita, that we need a point of reference. A lot of times there are new roles, and as compensation and benefit experts, business leaders, they reach out to really check that, what should be the right pay mix, or how much should be the variable versus fixed pay to be offered, for a particular role. And I think benchmarking really helps a lot. Like Talat rightly pointed out, that it is very authentic data. It is very, very relevant, and it's highly confidential. So there is no, a chance of any kind of a leakage. At the same time, it can be well trusted. So it becomes a North Pole for us, basically.
And just try to add in that in certain during the COVID crisis, 2020 COVID crisis, a lot of budgets for such kind of activities were reduced. So when facing with such a cash crunch scenario in your particular organization, a good way of collecting market data is also through your hiring teams. When they are interviewing people from other competitions and they are looking at their salaries, but your hiring team should be well conversant with your own job grades, levels, the roles and responsibilities, and they should be able to properly match it to the competitor organization, because otherwise it just becomes a hearsay data. It's good for a dipstick for a shorter period of time, when you are in a cash crunch kind of a situation, but it's always good to have that benchmarked, because there is a market code which has a standard definition. All of the companies map up their job codes against that, and you get like Neha said, a North Pole kind of a data set with which you can run.
I think that brings me to a subset of a question to the dipstick test which you're talking about. This is for you, Neha. Then do you think that variable pay plans differ for small startup and big businesses?
Yes, I mean, in fact, not just, I would say within big businesses also, or within small businesses or startups, you might have different strategies, because it completely depends. We are talking about variable pay in terms of driving a performance culture, in terms of driving a certain objective, like, Arthi pointed out in the beginning, which is completely different from one organization to another. I mean, I might, as an organization, I have, 3-4 strategies very, very clearly defined for me. And the entire structure would be a roll down from organization to each employee who's expected to perform or deliver on certain, matrices. So obviously it differs, but I would say generally, if I may just look at the overall broad setup of a small business, you would have a variable pay performance in place, which would be individual performance based, right? Because, and there's a reason for that. And for a startup, you would want to have something like a profit sharing kind of a plan in place, because it's just, beginning to really set up or, settle in a space which was not existing earlier. And you would want that, the individuals are driven through whatever business they are getting or they are helping in terms of revenue generation is directly linked with that. However, for a big business, which is already set up, has its own name, brand value, or maybe global in nature, generally you would have performance plans which are linked with the company performance. Because, that kind of really provides you that opportunity that even if in one geography or in one particular vertical or, a process, things are not going good, overall, it will be taken care of. So, I would say that generally, these are the three, business setups in which the way variable pay at a broad level would look like. But at the same time, like I said, that it completely depends on individual business strategy and objectives. Yes.
Absolutely. Anybody else would like to add to Neha?
I do want to add in the sense that I kind of believe that possibly the exact opposite is being practiced. I'll tell you why. Um, in startups, right? Essentially, you are spending the first phase of your business trying to sustain, right? Largely, right? You want to sustain your business. Therefore, variable payouts are a direct outcome of your business outcome, right? It's largely entirely business performance. It is a different thing, or it's coincidental that sometimes business performance equal to individual performance in a startup because you have only that many number of employees, right? But in a startup, your affordability comes from business performance. Therefore, largely variable pay designs will be governed only by business performance in startup kind of businesses. But in large organizations, you have the luxury of doing talent segmentation, right? You can decide who can be on individual performance, who should be on business performance, who should be on, any other plan, right? You have the choice to make the decision simply because you have sustained, you have grown. Now you're trying to grow incrementally. Therefore, you want to, push for higher performance. Right? So in larger organizations, I believe you can focus more on the individual, and as possibly you go higher up the ladder, it can be more business outcome based. But in startups, I don't think you have an option but to pay based only on business outcome, because you first have to sustain, create a strong financial base before you really take the plunge and offer, more attractive variable plans is what I would think.
So since you spoke about the hierarchy, Arthi, so I have a related question. So do you think that the dimensions to consider while designing variable pay plan for various segments of employees, it should vary, or it should be a predetermined one?
No, clearly it should vary, right? That only if it varies, the employee can relate to it, right? A variable pay plan, when given to an employee, the employee should feel, okay, these are the things I should do. These are the things I can actually influence, right? Therefore, if I take this effort and influence these outcomes, I can meet this earning, right? If that, if I am not able to see that linkage, that variable plan is not of much use to me, right? I am just going to think, okay, it's based on something that the organization decides and it will come when it comes. And why will I do anything additional to kind of achieve that? Right? So talent segmentation is very important. Typically, at entry levels, what we try and do is a good practice is to make it based on individual performance, largely operational parameters. Things these employees have an influence on. Right, as you go higher up the ladder, you kind of add team management, and you bring a team focus to it. You make them accountable for team outcomes and a little bit on business outcomes as well, because as you go higher up, your influence on business outcomes increase, right? As you reach the leadership layer, right, typically your variable plan should be completely business outcome aligned, right? Because there you have a great deal of influence on the P&L, right? There again, that's an area you can influence, and therefore it's a good practice to keep my variable pay plan aligned to it, so that I know what are the specific actions I should take to influence this P&L, right? So that is one segmentation we really should achieve, especially as large organizations. We should be able to pick up who should be on individual performance, who should be on business performance, who should be on a combination of both. All right. The second segmentation is a function-wise segmentation. Sneha spoke about it initially, right? The sales and non-sales. right? Sales incentives. I mean, I spent close to about 8 to 9 years working in the sales space. I understand that space really well. It's a topic in its own, right? I mean, pretty much every organization wants to talk about it. In my mind, it is a very simple plan to administer simply because it's so objective in nature, right? Whichever industry it is, sales as a target, you have to achieve that target. It's very objective. It is simple to administer, but it possibly has the most amount of impact on the organization, right? In sales also, you should segment the population depending upon the degree of difficulty of the job and the level of influence the job can really, uh, generate, right? So, I mean, somebody who's doing new business development should be distinguished from somebody who's handling existing engagements, should be distinguished from somebody who has a mixture of two.
Exactly.
Therefore, variable plans should be customized to these talent segments. It should have all these differentiations built in, otherwise it will not work, right?
Yeah.
So if I have to really provide a line of sight to the employee, then I have to definitely segment the talent in terms of levels and then also in terms of functions, and also look at the degree of influence that they can generate on what you are expecting them to perform.
Exactly, absolutely. So I like the way you said, look at the individual performance, business for performance, and also a combination of these two when you're trying to give their goals and objectives. So I think that helps to create a segment within the employees and give a particular variable pay target. Thanks, Arti, for that. So we have last 10 minutes. I have two more questions. One is for Sneha. Sneha, this is for you. I think more or less we have covered this in the previous questions as well. Maybe you can share your point of view. Do you think that variable pay plan encourages the culture of performance or competition?
I mean, excellent question, really. But I mean, it would depend on what we want to bring in to the front. Do you want to have employees compete with each other, collaborate with each other? What is the value system the organization has? What is it that they will achieve if there is a competition? What is it they will achieve if there is collaboration? So the design of the variable compensation will decide whether you want to have employees competing. There would be in sales organization primarily a lot of competition and kind of driving that kind of culture. But within the organization where you have very process driven performances, there you would want to have more collaboration, and therefore you would want to have more performance driven culture. So it will depend on the culture that you want to drive within the organization. I think those are my 2 cents on how performance can drive performance or competition.
Absolutely. Yes, and then I think related to this, I have a question to Talat then. So since it is going to be more of performance and competition, so can we use variable pay as a retention tool in the current situation? Talat, what do you think? What will be the pros and cons?
Yeah, definitely you can use variable pay as a retention tool. When I'll tell you in my previous stint, or when I was working as a consultant, we used to consult with a lot of organizations to kind of pay at market when it came to their base salary, and we would ask them to differentiate themselves vis-a-vis the VPP if they were high performing organizations, which meant that I could still pay at 50th of the market. But when I combined my variable pay plan, I would keep my variable pay plan targets at market 66 or something like that. So my overall compensation would overarch than that of my direct competitors. So it definitely helps as a retention tool if you are in a growth phase, because with a higher variable pay plan, you are able to attract talent quickly. You're also able to retain your talent, because then you are showing the path towards meritocracy by saying that people who are performing better are getting paid better as compared to the other employees. So definitely it's to be used as a retention tool. The pros and cons that I can think of it as something that I've heard my fellow panelists talk about previously as well. Sneha was just mentioning it to say, competition is one thing that gets encouraged with variable pay plans. You could say things like office politics, competition, where I want to prove my performance is better than Sneha's, for example, and it might end up leading to some unhealthy competition. The other thing that I do want to call out can happen on, that I can think of variable pay plans as something of what we call as a peanut butter approach, when the budget is very limited and that, you've got some $100,000 and you've got to distribute it between 50,000 employees. And you have to put them on a bell curve simply for the reason because you have a limited pot of money that you need to distribute. And even if they would have performed very well in a very difficult year, you still have to go about that. So, how to make best use of that, how to go of that limited pot of money with the peanut butter approach is some of the cons that I can think of. I don't think so that I need to elaborate on the pros of it. And in the interest of time, I would stop there because I know we've spoken a lot about the pros of the VPP program out here. Doesn't need mention again.
Yeah, thank you so much, Talat. There are a lot of questions in the chat window. I'm going to just randomly pick a few since we have 6 minutes left. There's one for you, Talat, from Chang Liu. I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. I'm sorry for that. He asks you, in your opinion, whose decision-making power is higher when designing the STI plan, business or HR? Budget discussion is always hard.
Yeah, it's always a hard discussion, but we have to remember that at the end of the day, NHR is there because the business is there. We are all support functions to business, and our objective is to help business achieve their objectives. So if our variable pay plan isn't going down well with the business stakeholders, it is not achieving those objectives, which is it is this time, it should be achieving, then there's no point of having that variable pay plan in place. That would be my, very brief or a short answer to that very effective and penetrative question.
Thank you, Talat.
I hope what happens is that, we have, like I, mentioned in the beginning, we have two types of variable pay under performance bonus. One is typically applicable to all the, non-revenue generating roles. And then there is a revenue generating role, which is typically a sales or, whatever is the product of the organization as business, those employees who are directly impacting the revenue. So all those incentive plans or commission structures, I would say, always are made in collaboration with the business team. And they are the ones who would be able to really help the HR team understand what is it in terms of performance which is needed, or the matrices and the way it should be designed and planned. So definitely, I would agree with Talat that, without the business involvement or their, I would say, involvement in it, it is not going to be really something which will be, I would say, working in the ground. Their acceptance, their, involvement, their input is very much required for that.
Exactly.
I'll just take a minute to kind of, elaborate something that Arthi also brought up in the previous discussion with respect to the revenue generating roles, like Neha said, especially the sales team, wherein we say that, sales plan are pretty easy. You either hit the target or you don't hit the target. So you either make your VPay or you don't make your VPay. I can tell you, I have worked with a lot of organizations who have employed this simplistic approach for their sales folks to say that you make your VPay or you don't make your VPay, you either hit your target or you don't hit your target. But it becomes, what happens with that kind of approach is that it gives rise to a very, very individualistic kind of a culture where salespeople, and especially in larger organizations where you are selling IT products and things like that, it becomes very difficult because people wouldn't want to collaborate with each other. And so to my mind, I would have, and I have gone ahead and recommended to organizations that to tie in to the performance appraisals, wherein people are demonstrating, qualities like collaboration, teamwork, etc., even if they are on the sales role and even if they are hitting the sales target. So I just wanted to call out that one on the sales plans as well, that while they seem to be very simple and very effective, but the underbelly of it is not when they are actually playing out in practice.
Thanks, Talat. So one last question. So maybe this is more for an Indian audience. So any one of the panelists can take this up. So what's your view on paying variable pay to employees who leave within the year and not part of a traditional eligibility guidelines?
I think it is from in today's date where the talent is really difficult to find. I would vote for, at least having completed 6 months in the organization, you should still be eligible to get it, because ultimately I would hunt for certain roles and want that employee back in the organization. So why not create an ambassador? But it would differ from organization to organization and primarily, but that's my personal view, that you can definitely the person who's leaving the organization not leave in bad taste, but take it ahead as an ambassador and continue that relationship and not end it abruptly. That's my take.
Great.
I have a slightly different view on that, Shweta. So in fact, I would say, and I'm not being too cost oriented here, but I'm just saying that what makes sense and what is logical. And precisely this is one of the reasons that variable pay, I would say, for an employer, it comes under the pros, that you give each other, that much time period to be able to prove in terms of your performance, in terms of your loyalty as well. And it is very, I think it's absolutely normal. If somebody did not like that particular role or whatever may be the reason behind it, to really leave the organization before 1 year completion, it's absolutely fine. The only thing is that I feel that it should be very, very practical and pragmatic, right? If the performance and the loyalty hasn't been really met, you've given that time to each other, and that time, I would say 1 year time is a fair enough time. I should be really, through the variable pay, I should be able to really save that cost, right?
Okay, yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. I think with this, we will end this webinar. Thank you so much all for participating in overwhelming number. I think we are glad that you all could join us. And I especially thank my lovely ladies who are on this panel. They were awesome. And then I think they shared a lot of insights. It's wonderful to have you all here. Thank you so much. Have a great evening ahead, and then wish you all a better day tomorrow. Bye. See you. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chivita. Thank you.
Bye, guys. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.